Steve Jobs, the man who changed the world forever, an emotional life story. Have you ever wondered how one person with nothing more than a dream, endless curiosity, and an unstoppable belief in himself could change the way billions of people live? Today, I want to share the incredible journey of. This isn't just the story of a businessman. It's the story of a young boy who was abandoned at birth, faced rejection, lost everything he built, and still found the strength to come back stronger than ever. His life reminds us that sometimes our biggest failures become the beginning of our greatest success. Steve Jobs was born on February 24, 1955, in. His biological parents were young college students who believed they couldn't raise a child. Shortly after he was born, Steve was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs, a loving middle-class couple who gave him a home filled with care and encouragement. Even though Steve later learned he had been adopted, his parents always made him feel deeply loved. They taught him that family isn't defined by blood but by the people who stand beside you every single day. As a child, Steve was different from many kids around him. He was curious, creative, and constantly asking questions. He loved taking things apart just to understand how they worked. His father, Paul, spent hours teaching him how to build and repair electronics in their garage. Those simple moments became the foundation for a passion that would eventually change the world. School wasn't always easy for Steve. He was incredibly intelligent, but he often felt bored in class. Teachers sometimes struggled to understand him because he challenged rules and preferred thinking differently. While many saw him as difficult, others recognized that he had an extraordinary imagination. As he grew older, Steve met someone who would change his life forever. Wozniak was a brilliant engineer with incredible technical skills, while Steve had a rare talent for seeing what ordinary people wanted before they even knew it themselves. Together, they made an unforgettable team. In 1976, working from the Jobs family's small garage, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak founded. They had little money, no fancy office, and no guarantee of success. What they did have was determination. They built the first Apple computer by hand, hoping people would believe in their vision. Slowly but surely, that vision began to spread. Apple introduced computers that were easier to use and more personal than anything people had seen before. The company grew rapidly, turning two young dreamers into global entrepreneurs. Steve Jobs became known for his passion, creativity, and relentless pursuit of perfection. But success came with challenges. Steve demanded excellence from everyone around him. While many admired his leadership, others found him extremely demanding. He believed that creating something extraordinary required pushing beyond ordinary limits. In 1984, Apple launched the revolutionary Macintosh. It changed the computer industry forever with its graphical interface and mouse. People were amazed by its simplicity and design. Yet behind the scenes, tensions inside Apple were growing. Just 1 year later, something almost unimaginable happened. Steve Jobs was forced out of the very company he had created. Imagine building your dream with your own hands and then being told you no longer belong there. For Steve, it was heartbreaking. He later described it as one of the most painful experiences of his life. Many people believed his career was over. But life had other plans. Instead of giving up, Steve started again. He founded Greater Than, where he continued developing advanced computer technology. Around the same time, he purchased a small animation studio that would later become. Few people believed that animated movies made entirely with computers could succeed. Steve believed otherwise. In 1995, Pixar released the world's first fully computer-animated feature film. It became a massive success and proved once again that Steve could see the future before everyone else. Meanwhile, Apple was struggling. The company that had once changed technology was now losing direction. In 1997, Apple made a surprising decision. They asked Steve Jobs to return. Many people expected him to seek revenge or focus on the past. Instead, Steve focused on rebuilding the future. He simplified Apple's products, inspired employees, and introduced a culture centered on innovation and beautiful design. The years that followed changed the world. Apple introduced the iMac, followed by the iPod, which transformed the music industry. Then came the iPhone in 2007, forever changing how people communicate, work, learn, and connect with each other. Later came the iPad, creating an entirely new category of devices. Steve wasn't simply selling technology. He wanted technology to feel personal, simple, and beautiful. He believed people deserved products that made life easier instead of more complicated. Behind the scenes, however, Steve faced a battle far more difficult than business. In 2003, he was diagnosed with a rare form of pancreatic cancer. Even while undergoing treatment, he continued leading Apple and inspiring millions. His determination amazed people around the world. Though his health slowly declined, his passion for creating never disappeared. Steve often reminded people that life is short. One of his most famous ideas was that remembering our mortality helps us focus on what truly matters. Instead of living someone else's expectations, he encouraged people to follow their own hearts and intuition. On October 5, 2011, Steve Jobs passed away at the age of 56 at his home in. News of his death spread across the globe within hours. Millions of people mourned not just the loss of a businessman but the loss of a visionary who had changed everyday life for generations. Today, Steve Jobs' legacy lives on in every iPhone call, every MacBook opened in a classroom, every iPad used by a child to learn, and every creative idea inspired by his belief that innovation begins with imagination. Whenever I think about Steve Jobs, I don't just see one of the greatest entrepreneurs in history. I see a young boy who was adopted, a dreamer who believed differently, a man who lost everything, started over, and refused to let failure define him. His journey teaches us that success isn't about never falling. It's about having the courage to stand back up every single time life knocks you down. Dreams don't belong only to the lucky, they belong to those who keep believing, even when no one else does. If Steve Jobs' story leaves us with one lesson, it's this: your past doesn't decide your future. Your failures don't define your destiny. As long as you continue learning, creating, and believing in yourself, the next chapter of your life can become your greatest masterpiece.